Hello and welcome to my Supernatural Diaries, Redeeming Thunder. I'm here to give you a prophetic word through a dream regarding the prodigal children. Now, this prophetic word was given to me on 1/9/2026. And it has a lot to do with spiritual connection, okay? Where it talks about the roof of a house relates to where one is receiving divine revelations, okay? And it's a alarming dream. So at this time, the Most High is just about to release divine judgment, and he is gathering his flock. Okay? Some of these prodigals are returning, and some of them are not. And so you need to understand that you're going to literally have a front row seat to those that did not repent and grab a hold of the redemption. They're about to feel quite a shaking, okay? And you don't pray for everyone, and many are going to be left behind. Many. They're going to be left. I'm not talking about the rapture. I'm talking about divine judgment. They're going to be left, and they're not going to be able to enter the promised land because they had resembled a lifestyle of Sodom and Gomorrah, and they missed that. They looked back, and they wanted a piece of that life. Okay, so there are some that are going to make it through, but it's going to look kind of chaotic. There's going to be a crisis in order for them to wake up and to launch and to run towards their destiny. Okay? There's going to be a huge shaking. So listen on, because I'm going to give the interpretation of this dream. And these are appointed times now, so which means it's going to manifest on earth as it is in heaven. It already was in heaven. It happens in heaven first, in the spiritual realm, and in dimensions of time. Now, that occurrence is going to happen on earth. That's why one receives visions and dreams, because the Most High shows you what is going to happen. And I don't know about you, but I would like to know what's going to happen. Okay? I like to know ahead of time. And I'm so grateful that the Most High has chosen me to receive the gift, the mantle of Daniel, to interpret divine messages. Okay? To be one to receive visions and dreams and be able to have the gift to interpret, to warn you. Okay? So in this dream, there was a huge, the family had just moved into a really huge house. Okay? There were many people all around, friends of the children all around. And the prodigal children, my son and daughter, were there. with their friends. We happened to be in the attic room. There was white walls and dark wood and brown molding around the windows. I saw a stained glass window with many colors. When there's a window in the dream, it has to do with divine revelation, illumination. When you're in the attic and you're amongst, in view of a roof that's being highlighted in the dream, has a lot to do where, what roof are you under, which means you could be receiving divine revelation, and there are several ways. And the Most High is very, very particular, and He's going to pronounce judgment to those who gather their insight through other methods, of which I'm explaining is basically witchcraft. Okay? And or if you're getting this divine revelation from heaven, of course it's going to be with non-judgment, okay? Because the Most High is delivering it to you directly. And so now let's continue with the dream. Suddenly I look up and I see water dripping from the ceiling. And there's a crack in the ceiling, and it looks like if the sheetrock is swollen and opening. And I look over at the window, and now I see a lot of black mold around the window. So black mold is toxic, okay? I realize we are unaware that this house was rotting and moldy. And I said, we need to leave. We can't stay here. So we begin to pack. But now there's a shaking and the house beams are caving in. There's no time to pack. I told my son, please grab only a few things and go outside of the house. I told my daughter, gather a few things and tell her friends to exit the house. There were other people at the house, not sure if we had a party or a barbecue or something, but there were people there. There was a black man with 2 little boys. One was a teenager. I tried to gather my stuff. There was no time because I was too busy alerting everybody else to get out of the house. This was an emergency. I had ran out without shoes. I was barefoot, and I believe I had shoes on later on the journey. I started gathering a carriage, and we had a wagon, and we were walking. Now we're on foot, and we're walking. Okay? We're at the station with a white tree, and I see the tree looks to be a willow tree with white leaves and white branches. The tree looks almost transparent and visible. It is serene looking, with clouds such as fog all around the tree. I believe there was water around the tree. Trying to make sure that everybody was safe, we went to our next destination. Everyone needed a break. We rested. No one could find a teen and his dad. Now, on that note, some people are going to receive divine judgment, and some people are going to be in the wilderness stage. And obviously, when you're in the wilderness stage, it's like the Israelites traveling in the desert, remember, on foot. And they have to camp out, pull out their stakes, pegs, tent, and stake out for a bit, okay? So, when you're in the wilderness, it's the time of trials and testing. There's not necessarily divine judgment, okay? And you're going to want to take advantage of that time to develop a relationship with the Most High. And it seems like there were many people on board to go into the wilderness. But while they were in the wilderness, just like the Israelites, the Most High was getting upset, right, for their disobedience and their ungratefulness. And so they were tapering off, basically. And not all of them made it to the promised land, right? Some of them died from a snake bite. Some of them got very sick from rotten manna because they were hoarding it. Okay, some of them got stoned. Some of them were swallowed up within the earth, swallowing them up. They opened up and then swallowed them up. Okay, when they were doing some self-declarations of being Levites, and those individuals were not necessarily chosen by the Most High, but they were delegating themselves, promoting themselves. Okay, that's when they got swallowed up by the earth. And it is very important, if you are the Moses in your family, to not get bitter and or harbor frustration to the point where it causes you to become unrighteous, right? Because at the end of the day, Moses, for the story in the Bible, he did not make it at the very last destination. You don't want to be the one that doesn't make it, right? So he took authority upon himself to strike the rock when the Most High said, speak to the rock. So you got to keep your anger in check. Also, he was getting very, very testy with an attitude. Okay, so his heart posture wasn't in the correct alignment, because he was very annoyed at all of his group complaining. And the thing is, you're like, well, I would behave and I would be all right if those people stop complaining around me. But you don't understand, that is your test. The ones right near you are the ones that is part of your test of your character. They're going to push it. They're going to complain. It's going to be so frustrating and annoying that you might explode. And you might get out of character. Okay? And you might start to hate instead of love, and leave with love. So be careful, because you're in your last destination before the promised land. Okay, so back to the dream. Everyone needed a break, but nobody could find the teen and his dad. The young boy that was the brother found them in a shower that was in the forest. The dad of his teen and the teen were in the shower together. I went over to the shower and I opened the curtain, and I saw this man that was the father rubbing the teen boy with a yellow scrubber, like taking his teen boy a shower. And he was scrubbing his chest and his stomach, and it just looked nasty. It looked very inappropriate. And I just, in that moment, decided the father couldn't continue to come along on the trip. He got left behind. And the boy needed a rescue. And then we continued to march on, and I woke up. So when you have the Moses the Moses had the staff of authority. Okay. So Moses had the staff of authority. He received divine revelation from the Most High directly, and he was able to make these rules and set up these regulations for the group. Okay. And right now, if you are Moses in your family, you need to decide who comes in with you on the journey right now, at the stage that everybody's at, not what the potential is that they could become, at the level, face value of what they are right now. In other words, don't let other people back in your life when Yahuwah, the Most High, has already removed them from your lives. Those that are not standing with you right now should not be going with you. Okay? He's been tapering people off. Just, if you have to interact with them, you can set healthy boundaries. You can set your distance. But they're not like kumbaya, hanging out in your house, being all cozy and, barbecues and, fiestas. We're not doing that. Okay? Because he removed people from your life for a reason. So Yahuwah the Most High wants you to do another shaking off of individuals. And he's giving quite an alarming example of who doesn't come. And it just seems like, obviously, it's a situation of those that practice sexual immorality, okay? And or are sexual harassment, okay? With even amongst their own family members, okay? They are perverted people, in other words, are not making it. They didn't make the cut. And I feel like that should be obvious. That should be obvious. And right now, the Most High is explaining that he's causing a deliverance of for those children that had to experience in their lives some form of sexual immorality from their own family members. That we already decided that those are not coming along. He remembers, in other words. He remembers, and he's not going to let them come. Okay? All right. So let me get into the interpretation of the dream. Leaky roof. It means laziness and neglect. So maybe you are not the one who's lazy and neglect, but under your roof there's of who you are in charge of. Okay? Could be expressing laziness and or neglect. Okay? Slothfulness causes the roof, which is the protection in the structure, to collapse or leak. It means spiritual decay. Neglected spiritual lives become vulnerable, allowing sin, anxiety, or emotional issues to leak in. Similar to how water damages a physical house. It means lack of stewardship. Failing to maintain one's life, faith, or household shows a lack of responsible care, resulting in disorder and ruin. Constant trouble. A leaky roof also symbolizes a constantly nagging, quarrelsome spouse whose persistent issues drip away peace and comfort. So maybe you are the one, or maybe your spouse is the one that is always causing quarrels amongst the family members and or contentious behavior, or the nagging someone to change and they don't change. Okay? It's causing the peace and the comfort to dissipate from the house. Okay? So there's someone in your life that's causing strife. And they're inviting demonic entities instead of angelic protection. Because you can only have one in your house, right? So that's how the spiritual realm works. So you need to protect your home and your family. And you need to remove the individual individuals before it starts causing mold and a leaky roof. Okay? The roof represents protection. A leak signifies that this protection barrier is failing, letting in negative influence or emotions. Now, what's going on is when you don't remove the individual or individuals or remove yourself from them, they start to negatively influence the others around. That's why it's easier for someone to pull you down rather than you pulling them up from a chair if you're standing on a chair, right? And you can't have that happen because you are raising a kingdom family. You are raising Levites. You are raising kings, future kings, okay? Princesses. So you cannot have negative influences around your legacy because they will affect their future. Okay? Or even people that enable and the way they raise children, the way they raise individuals is wrong. It's toxic and or enables bad behavior. It enables them to be non-accountable. Okay? Because it may enable them to be, let's say they're boys and they don't know how to raise boys correctly. Okay? So then they're raising them as if it's a woman raising boys, and if she's in her masculine energy, it's gonna have a polarity, and so then naturally the boys are gonna be in their feminine energy because you can't have two masculines. Okay, it's opposites. So if that guardian or that parent constantly, who is a woman, is always in their masculine, they're going to put the boys in their feminine. Okay? So everybody has to be in their correct role in order for this to work and for the children to be raised up correctly. Okay? So, because when you go into the promised land, when you go into the future millennial reign time frame, everybody's healed and everybody is healthy, mentally healthy. Okay, they're not bringing up toxic traits. Okay, and you don't want to be raising, if you, let's say you're a woman and you're masculine energy, so that basically a feminist, and then you have girls, and if you're not in your feminine energy and you have girls, you're going to teach them to be in their masculine energy, and that's not how the Most High wants the families raised. Okay, same thing if there's a man father figure raising a family, and then he's in his feminine, the wrong mindset. So he's in his feminine energy. Okay. He's going to teach those boys that he has some machista, masculine, feminine, traits. And it's going to disrupt quality people. Okay, upbringing. It's going to disrupt. Because it's not correct. Okay? And if that father figure does not want to embrace his masculine energy all the time, it's confusing for the children. Okay? And we're not doing a spirit of confusion. There's clarity. Okay? He's supposed to raise the boys to be protective and stable, to have a stable nervous system, to regulate their nervous system, because they're going to be the stability of their family when they finally are at the age to marry, right? And so you need quality parents raising these children. All right, now let's continue on with the principle can be applied to spiritually, as neglecting one's spiritual life can lead to moral spiritual decay. Obviously, if you neglect your spiritual life, you could ease into the wrong energy. Okay? So, now the mold in the house. It represents... it references Leviticus 14:33-57. It's a sign of uncleanliness, a potential divine judgment for disobedience, and a metaphor for the persuasive nature of sin. So, now, this is getting serious now. The mold sometimes is translated as leprosy or mildew. Not just a physical problem, but as a ceremonial spiritual issue for the Israelite community. There's a divine cause and warning to alert the inhabitants to their spiritual state. The physical manifestation was seen as a tangible barometer of the household's spiritual health and a potential curse for covenant infidelity. Mold serves as a vivid illustration of sin's effects. It is destructive, unwholesome, and spreads if unchecked. It can lead to a total destruction. The presence of mold around a window, which often symbolizes revelation or insight in the Bible, could be interpreted as a blockage of spiritual light or a sin that is outwardly visible to the community. The need for cleansing. The necessity of maintaining purity within the community. The presence of mold in a home was a serious matter requiring immediate attention and the intervention of a priest to ensure both physical and spiritual well-being. You need to step it up as the priest of your home and express these enlightenment of the need for deliverance and purity in your children's lives. Okay? It is critical that you stand your ground and you remove them from the toxic if need be. Okay? Now, in Leviticus 14, when they had a mold in their tents, okay? I guess it still happened back in the day. The owner was required to inform the priest, who would inspect the house and quarantine it for 7 days. If the mold spread, affected stones and plaster had to be removed and disposed of in an unclean place outside the town. Demolition, the last resort. If the mold returned after remeditation, the house was declared permanently unclean and had to be torn down completely. Atonement. If the house was successfully cleansed, a purification ritual involving 2 birds, cedar wood, scarlet yarn, and a hyssop was performed to make atonement for the house, declared it clean. So, you gotta worship. Okay? Literally be clean in your house. Literally clean your house. Clean your closets. It has a bunch of clutter. I just finished doing that. Now everything looks organized. Your garage. Is it up to standards? Your backyard. Does it look cluttery? Does it look like a dump yard, or does it look pristine and beautiful with curb appeal? Literally try. Get your plants, get your gardening shovel, and beautify your house. Okay? Quite literally. Declutter the closets and the other bedrooms. You know, don't have a mile high of laundry. Okay? That every room looks tidy and upkept. Why? Because your physical home represents your temple. You can't be purified and clean and righteous internally in your temple, in your body, and your house is in disarray. That doesn't make sense. It has to match. Your car, it needs to be tidy. Okay? And some of these individuals had gotten used to being slothful and literally hoarders level. Okay? Lazy and not see it as important, or, you know, live in a disastrous, messy room. I need you to make your bed every single day. Okay? Even though you know you want to get under the covers a little bit later that day, just make your bed. It takes about 10 to 20 seconds to fold the blanket and tuck your sheets in and everything. It really matters how you set the tone for the day. Okay? Laundry in the laundry baskets, not all over the floor. Hang all your clothes up. You know, yard debris, dump the stuff that's in your house. Do not leave clutters and clutters where it's looking like a mile high, you know, unorganized. You don't know where anything is at in your garage. Don't do that. Why? Because it literally opens a door to demonic entities to enter your house when your house is unclean, physically unclean. Okay? And you're going to think, well, I didn't really make this mess. Other people made it. I know. I get that. But you're the leader. You're the Moses in your family. And you need to direct those to tidy up. Okay? Just like the priest went into the Israelites' home in the wilderness, and they figured out there was a mold problem and stuff, a leaky roof. You need to correct that behavior. Nip it. Okay? Because this untidiness that's in the home, physically, stuff in your house. Okay? Once it's just slothfulness, and it says, okay, so there's 7 sins that don't make it to heaven, and one of them is being slothful. Okay, that's the other reason. But besides that, it literally is causing one to receive some divine judgment if you don't tidy up or remove yourself from that. Okay? Now, on the part of gone barefoot in the dream, it means humility and distress. David went barefoot as a sign of deep grief, and Isaiah used going barefoot as a symbol of shame and or calamity. So in this dream, it kind of is explaining that it's not witchcraft. It's literally individuals' own slothfulness, laziness, that is bringing forth this judgment, potential judgment. Okay? He's warning you so that you can tidy up and prevent that judgment from coming to your home, to your family. Okay? Alright, so it also being barefoot, expressions of mourning and lamentation. Going barefoot is also depicted as expression of mourning and lamentation. In 2 Samuel 15:30, David flees from his son Absalom. David continued up the Mount of Olives, weeping as he went. His head was covered, and he was walking barefoot. David's barefoot journey symbolizes his deep sorrow and the gravity of his situation. Some of you are in dire straits, and you've been very, very sad, grieving, in sorrow. Now, for the story of David and Absalom, his own son was against him and wanted to take his kingdom from him, and he was hunting him down to kill his own father. And David had to flee his house, his castle, his palace, for safety. How much it hurts that your own children or child attacks, disgraces, belittles, and literally is out to get you, to throw you in jail and or kill you. Okay? Some of you have been experiencing quite the level of grief that you didn't have all your armor up. Okay, so the armor includes shoes, right? So in the dream, I had run out with shoes, without shoes, too busy warning everybody else to get out in time. And I feel like this is appointed times, because lately I have been feeling quite the grief and the sorrow. And it was tremendous amount of emotional pain that I actually got shingles because of it. Okay? When you love somebody and you can't express your love for them, that causes a lot of turmoil and grief. When you have this divine revelations and guidance to provide, and the only way you can provide it is through a text message, because the individuals don't answer the phone, and or because the other parent is depriving you of them. Okay? It causes a lot of grief, because you can see in the spirit that they have that uncleanness, that slothfulness. Okay? The spiritual lack of spiritual connection with the Most High. And could also hurt very much is others having an open door for connection with the prodigals, but you always are miles away. Okay? Not invited, not included, not regarded, not valued. Okay? And you give, and you are trying your best to provide love and kindness. So around this time frame, there was a time where they were celebrating my prodigal daughter's birthday. And you know, getting to see photos of my prodigal son and my prodigal daughter, but not being able to embrace them is wonderful at the same time, but it's also heartbreaking. Okay? And they are under a home that's like with a leaky roof and mold around the windows. Spiritually speaking. Probably could be even physically. Okay? And if you notice that it was time for myself in the dream to remove them from that situation. Okay, so the act of going barefoot serves as a powerful symbol reflecting various spiritual, social conditions, whether as an expression of humility before Yahuwah, a sign of mourning, or an indication of servitude. So basically, by going barefoot, there's a sign of great distress. Okay? And there was. And so when you're in that level of distress, please, please, please go into the secret place and cry out to the Most High. Remind him of his divine promises where the prodigal children return. Remind him. Literally say, you told me. You told me that they're returning. Okay? And pray in the Spirit. Now, the interpretation of the house shaking, it means judgment and overthrow. A shaking signifies Yahuwah's judgment on earthly powers, sin, and corruption, leading to the collapse of structures like nations or false ideologies that oppose his will. Purification and renewal. The shaking removes what is imperfect, shakeable, to reveal what is permanent, unshakable, preparing for the glorious purified temple of Yahuwah on earth. Divine presence. A great shaking often accompanies Yahuwah's powerful presence as seen as at Mount Sinai or on the day of Pentecost in Acts 2. So in the Mount Sinai was Exodus 19, if you want to look that up, where the earth and the heavens responded to his voice. So in other words, when the house was shaking, the Most High's voice, he was speaking in their lives. Okay? It's causing them to get shook. The revelations that you have been providing. And to turn it around. Why did they turn it around? Because they didn't stay in that house. They walking beside you on the journey. Okay? Haggai 2:67. Yet Once more I will shake the heavens and the earth, and I will fill this house with glory. A shaking can represent a personal trials, crisis, or a deep spiritual challenges that reveal hidden areas of weakness or misdirection in a believer's life. It's a call to spiritual vigilance, repentance, and an eternal perspective, urging people to align their lives with Yahusha's everlasting kingdom. So he's going to cause some kind of crisis in order for them to turn it around. Okay? Now, the interpretation of walking in the dream. Can two walk together except they be agreed? Amos 3:3. This highlights that walking together requires harmony of the mind and heart, alignment in beliefs, values, goals, alignment with Yahuwah's will. Hallelujah. Allah Shamakia Sataya Kashimakasi Alava. Okay, so we were walking together, pulling a wagon of a few supplies. Remember? That means they are finally in harmony of heart and mind. They are aligning with the beliefs that I have, the values and the goals, and alignment with the Most High, His will. Allah Shama Akaya Shama Shakayama Salah. And then I hear in the subdays, Sodom are being left behind. And that's basically, two facts right there. Okay, so a well-watered tree has a deep, strong roots that anchor it firmly, making it resistant to erosion, heat, drought, and storms. We're talking about the willow tree. This symbolizes the unwavering faith and steadfastness of a person rooted in Yahuwah who remains calm and trusting even in the face of trials, adversity, and challenging circumstances. The willow tree carries a dual symbolism representing both mourning and sorrow, as well as resilience, renewal, and divine provision. Just because there is mourning and sorrow, it doesn't mean that nothing's happening in the background. Do you understand what this means? You might get sad. You might feel grief. You probably will. With that transition and in the wilderness, it is really hard. But what is built in that time frame is resilience, renewal, and divine provision. So when a willow tree is found near water, symbolizes spiritual nourishment. That means they are now seeking revelations from heaven above. Okay? Now there's a famous reference in Psalms 137, 1-2, where the exiled Israelites in Babylon hung their harps on the willows by the rivers, unable to sing the songs of their homeland due to their deep grief and loss. So this powerful imagery established the willow tree as a symbol of lamentation. Haya shala shama saka sama shala shala shala. So there's exiled Israelites that hung their harps on the willows by the rivers. This willow tree was amongst water. It represents that you were not the only one. I was not the only one, talking as the parent. Those who are waiting for their prodigal children to return, right? Everybody who is crossing that tree at that destination had experienced grief and loss. You were not the only one. I was not the only one who felt that grief and loss, who craved to embrace and to share loving kindness. Okay? I felt that deep grief and sadness that I was not able to be with them on their birthdays that had recently passed. Okay? And I wasn't the only one. They finally had some breakthrough and were able to spend time with other family members besides myself after about close to 4 years of not interacting at all due to my ex stealing my children, if you recall. Okay? But he not only deprived me of my children, he deprived all of them, from their grandparents and their cousins. Okay? And just recently, within the last week or two, was an encounter. So in April, was an encounter. Things are shifting in the atmosphere. Okay? The prophetic words of the prodigals returning and them being illuminated and having new hearts is literally happening already. And I'm going to show you pictures. You could see it in their eyes when someone has a new heart, when someone wouldn't smile in the past and now they can't stop smiling when they see their loved ones that they didn't understand why they held a grudge before, and now they are embracing them. And they're giggling, and they were having a blast with one another. You're going to see what I'm talking about. You can see it in their posture. You can see it in their facial expression. You could see it in their eyes that they have new hearts. And the reason why I share this, because this prophetic word is real, it's alive. And I received that they were returning. And now I receive this prophetic word that they're on the journey, walking alongside. When in the past they would not. Okay? Something seriously shifted in the atmosphere. Your prayers have reached the heavens. And can you just notice my son's smile? He is just so handsome, and look at that beautiful smile. When I was crying out to the Most High, I just had that image in my mind of his beautiful smile. When my daughter just turned 17, and she's just so glamorous and beautiful. I'm in anticipation of them returning. because now that they have new hearts and they're able to be in alignment with the Most High's will, I'm able to then soon share who they are, who they truly are. I've been holding that information for several years. They have these divine gifts, and you know, when you're holding a secret, prophets and prophetesses have many secrets, by the way. We see things in the spirit, yet we cannot say it until the appointed times. So as I received this prophetic word in January of 2026, it's occurring now that I'm recording it in May 2026. Some of these other prophetic words of them returning I received 4 years ago. Some 2 years ago. Some a year ago. Okay? But they are, what's so exciting about this year, Hebraic year 5786, where the Most High hooks heaven on earth. It means peg, it means hook, the number 6, is that all of these prophetic words from the past are manifesting on earth as it is in heaven now. So as I'm living life, I'm noticing, I'm recalling the dreams or the visions I've had, and I'm noticing that I'm living that exact dream in real life, almost like a deja vu experience. And you are going to feel the same. So again, with those who are prophets and prophetesses, our gift is difficult because we have to hold in a lot of secrets. We have to hold in a lot of mysteries. We're in constant private investigation. We're undercover. And we cannot disclose things just yet. And we have to be always on the lookout for the clue. Okay? And the reason why the Most High speaks in clues and in mysteries, because he doesn't want the enemy to know ahead of time. He's just telling you. He's just telling me. And he's letting me know that I can now reveal certain revelations. And it's just so satisfying to finally be able to let it out and not hold it in anymore. Because it is, sometimes feels like a burden. Okay? Or I know it's finally time to share it, is that the burden feels so heavy. And it finally feels a relief of pressure. That means it was the right time to deliver it, besides receiving confirmation. Okay, so the meaning of the carriage represents the burdens, worries, or responsibilities believers carry, echoing Yahushua's call to find rest. It can signify preparation for the journey, getting ready for a spiritual pilgrimage or a mission. Okay, so traveling in a wagon symbolizes divine provision, Yahuwah's guidance, and the journey of faith, often representing physical migration, like the Israelites moving to Egypt in Genesis, or a spiritual passage, while also highlights themes of family care, community support, and the movement from one life stage to another, sometimes indicating the need for patience during difficult, slow seasons. Wagons were practical tools for carrying goods and people, but in Scripture they became vessels in Yahuwah's unfolding plans and the shared journey of believers. Hallelujah, Allah, Allah. Divine provision and guidance. Joseph sending wagons for his family shows Yahuwah providing tangible means for their migration and fulfilling promises, while wagons themselves serve to move sacred objects. The fact that I had this dream in January, then my son's birthday was in February, my daughter's birthday is in April. I kept going back to this dream, realizing that there was a wagon and then there was provision, right? There was goods. And so it prompted me, now that I had their address and now that I knew what school they were at, to be able to deliver gifts, provisions, right? Like I was prompted to do that at this appointed time. And so if the Most High puts it in your heart to do so for your prodigal child or children, you must. That is key. That is part of the breakthrough. They may not respond and say thank you. They may not. Okay? Although my daughter did, but it through a text message, but the part about giving and not receiving immediately, you know, that part's hard. You go and take a journey and let's say you can only deliver it, and you have your heart set that you want to go see them, physically see them in front of you, and you don't get that chance. That may happen. It doesn't mean it's wrong. That goes to show then the willow tree and the water, the sorrow and the grieving. And it goes hand in hand with the prophetic word, what happened in real life. Okay? Now, we're going to be praying right now. This session is titled Destroying the Traveling Routes of Witchcraft. So we're going to be praying along with me, declaring, decreeing. Let life-choking thorns begin to grow on the traveling route of my household witchcraft in the name of Yahusha. Let the traveling routes of my household witchcraft become their burying places in the name of Yahusha. Let the angel of destruction continually minister on any route of witchcraft that is fashioned against me and my children in the name of Yahusha. Let any witchcraft route constructed against me or against my children become dark and slippery in the name of Yahusha. Thunderbolt of Yahuwah, begin to scatter the traveling routes of any witchcraft troubling me in the name of Yahusha. This session is titled Breaking Down the Transportation of Witchcraft. Let the terrible fire of Yahuwah consume the transportation of my household witchcraft in the name of Yahusha. I ordain the tempest of Yahuwah against every witchcraft transportation system designed against my life in the name of Yahusha. Every witchcraft transportation system assigned against my life shall not prosper in the name of Yahusha. As the angel of Yahuwah obstructed Balaam, let every witchcraft transportation be destroyed in the name of Yahusha. No evil transportation system shall prosper against my life in the name of Yahusha. This session is titled Destroying the Altars of Witchcraft. Altars that are working against me, let the heavens send judgment against you now in the name of Yahusha. I need you to pray this with me because I recently had another dream of a new home, and I was making my rounds, making sure all the windows were locked and all the doors were locked, and there was people sleeping in the house, okay? And I went to the garage, and there was a humongous mess of other people's stuff there. And I looked outside in the back. It looked like a shed, and that had a grip load of stuff, and the garage had a grip load of stuff. I started pulling the stuff out. It had stuffed animals that looked like fair type stuffed animals. And I'm like, this is my stuff. It's just like bajillion junk, you know? And I had this desperate need to declutter and to just take it out of my house, even in my garage, okay? And I was pulling it out and just yanking it out and throwing it out, you know, And I noticed that the outside looked like the sun was going down. So it was getting dark, but everybody else was sleeping in the house. Right. So what happened was, as I was pulling everything out, these weird people started coming towards me and what was interesting is that when I looked around, all the other neighbors also had the additional storage. It looked like a shack with crusty tan or blue paint. So it looked ghetto, okay? Which was interesting because the front of the house looked pristine. It looked like a very luxurious neighborhood. But the back of the house looked ghetto. And anyway, all the other neighbors had a grip load of junk in their garage. Tons of stuff. Okay? Like, it's just unnecessary. It looks crowded and just yucky. And so what happened was, suddenly these clown-like people that had like clown face paint were just right in front of me. And they're saying, "Hey, that's my stuff. Leave it in there." And I'm like, looked at and heard what they said, but I didn't care. And I started taking it out. And then they said, "We're going to go inside." And they were threatening to hurt my family, my children. So I started yelling out for my husband to come. And when I yelled for him, and I yelled for my dog Dulce, I said, let her loose, because I knew she was going to take them out. She's a Rottweiler, by the way. Okay, I saw my spouse, that I have right now, I saw him sleeping with weapons. And he woke up and he came running, but I saw the dog running towards to help me because these demonic figures were wanting to enter the house. Okay? And I woke up. So, in other words, there's another threat to your family. And it has a lot to do with the junk, the uncleanness that's in the house. Even in the garage where you don't get to look at much. You got to clean that out. Whatever's in the, messy in your yard or along the side, where, you want to deal with it later, you need to get rid of it. Because it's opening a door to unclean spirits. To a spirit of poverty. And if you already broke the spirit of poverty in your life, okay, you don't want to open that back up, right? So continue to pray with me, declare and decree, because this, besides physically removing things out of your house to tidy up, and I get it. In the dream, we had just moved in, and there was a lot of clutter. But let's say you just moved in somewhere, and you're just overwhelmed by the amount of work and everything that's going on. I get that. But just make it as a priority in this hour, because there is an attack that's trying to slew in. Okay? And it's not just attacking for, hindering spirits. It's a spirit of poverty. So, please, in all seriousness, finish up the prayer with me so that you block it in the spiritual realm as well, okay? Evil altars, the day of your judgment has come by fire in the name of Yahusha. Let every altar of witchcraft and familiar spirit be broken in the name of Yahusha. We set the fire of Yahuwah on demon powers, eating sacrifices on crossroads. I command that every altar of wickedness construct against me to be broken in the name of Yahusha. Let the fire of Yahuwah fall down and consume every altar of false religion in the country in the name of Yahusha. I disgrace every altar of iniquity in my life by the blood of Yahusha. I rebuke the spell of any witchcraft pot from my neck in the name of Yahusha. Every pot cooking my affairs, Yahuwah rebuke you in the name of Yahusha. Let the altars of witchcraft in my household be roasted in the name of Yahusha. This Session is titled Breaking Witchcraft Curses. Raise your 2 hands up. Quite literally do that with me, okay? Father Yahuwah, destroy every witchcraft curse upon my life by your fire in the name of Yahusha. You, my divine destiny, you will not be bewitched in the name of Yahusha. I gather together all witchcraft curses issued against my life and my children's lives in the name of Yahusha, and I send them back to the sender. This season is titled Destroying Covens of Witchcraft. O Yahuwah, let your thunder and fire locate all covens of witches and wizards established against me for the total destruction. As the wax is melted by fire, let all witchcraft covens caging my life or destiny evaporate by fire in the name of Yahusha. All witchcraft banks and strong room harboring my blessings and the treasures be pulled down by fire in the name of Yahusha. Every witchcraft coven covering my name for evil be destroyed by fire in the name of Yahusha. Every witchcraft coven having my picture or image be consumed by fire in the name of Yahusha. I command my body, soul, and spirit to jump out of every witchcraft coven in the name of Yahusha.